Welcome to Convince Me. We are back for a chaotic, crazy week 17 in the NFL. Players getting benched, players going on IR, new quarterbacks in. We're glad you're here with us for the Power Hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about, none of the stuff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, Chris Raybon, are going to convince me the props, the sides, the totals I should play for the NFL slate. Plus, we have Evan Abrams with market reports and trends that make you sound smarter than your friends. We will also welcome in Dr. Nick Giffen, who's going to take us through the latest need to know from our luck rankings at the bottom half of the hour. Gilles Gallant and Brian Matthews will preview the best touchdown props on the board today for the touchdown show. Before we begin, a reminder, like this video, subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page, and all the picks, all the data, all the research that we discussed today available in the award-winning Action Network app. Download it now. Let's take a look at the leaderboard. Sean Koerner's making a run. He is edging closer and closer, 2 weeks to make a game of it. I like his attitude. I like his picks. Let's kick it off with a Sean Koerner prop. No one knows what it's going to be. It's exclusive right here, right now. Lay it on us, Koerner.
All right, I'm going to go with Alexander Madison over 13 and a half receiving yards. And this is a prop that not only did I give out, but Nick Giffen did actually first. So this is a Nick and Sean collab here. And we give it out at 12 and a half. You can get it just 1 yard higher. And this is something we both showed about 5 to 8 yards of value. So this one is still in play. I still like it at 13 and a half. But Madison, he's taken over as the lead back now that he's healthy, and your favorite running back, Chad, Sincere McCormick and Zamir White are both on IR. So, Amir Abdullah has been mixing in quite a bit, making this more of a split committee. But Madison is certainly leading it. And he ran a route on roughly half of Aiden O'Connell's dropbacks last week. And AOC's been checking it down a ton to his running backs. He's thrown 13 targets each of the last 2 weeks to his running backs. So that's been benefiting Madison a ton. And if you recall, one of the reasons I was on Jordan Love's completion prop under for Monday Night Football last week was due to the Saints just allowing a ton of yards after the catch. And that's actually one of the reasons it helped him stay under, thank God. But same applies here. Madison, if he gets 1 or 2 catches here, could clear this. But I'm actually projecting closer to 3. So I think we have a lot of wiggle room here. And I'm and Nick are projecting this closer to, 18, 19 yards. So I think we're still getting quite a bit of value here over 13 and a half.
Dude, that Jordan Love completions prop was a sweat. I think he had 11 or
Yeah.
12 in the first half. By the fourth quarter, I
Yep.
think he had 16 or 17. So that was
All part of the
exciting.
plan, Chad. All part of the plan.
All part of the plan. You knew the game script. Everybody knows there's a script. You just happened to get it early. All right, Simon, what's your play?
Going with Jordan Addison over 4.5 receptions. And this is really about playing the spot for this Vikings team. I expect this game to kind of be a shootout, Chad. Like looking at this matchup, I don't really think both defenses are that good. I feel like they face kind of weak quarterbacks. And when they do play good quarterbacks, they're able to move the ball. And then you mix in the fact that Jair Alexander is out for this Green Bay team. A guy who historically has actually done really well against Jefferson and shut him down. That's going to be even more of a reason for them to double Jefferson and leave Addison in one-on-one, which is he's excelled at all season, and Sam Darnold's taken advantage of all season. So it's really about this matchup and the fact that Addison and his trust with Sam Darnold has just been building these last couple of weeks. He's gone over this total at a 4 out of the 5 last games. The only time he's gone under it is when they were in a blowout win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout win, Chad. I think this is going to come down to the final possession, a shootout, a lot of points, a lot of air yards, and this is the kind of guy that they're going to target. Like, he is such a special weapon. I mean, it's incredible how good Minnesota has become at drafting these wide receivers. And as great as Sam Darnold's been this season, he's even said himself, it's really the weapons. Like when he's throwing to TJ Hawkinson, Addison, and obviously Jefferson, it makes his job way easier. So I just think this is the type of game where they're going to attack Green Bay through the air. That's where you want to attack Green Bay. And the fact that this is still below 5, which is, again, he keeps going over, I love the value here on this prop.
Look, you and I have been talking about the Packers and the Vikings all week. We love this game, opposite sides of it, but you're not wrong about Jordan Addison. He's been the perfect complement to Justin Jefferson, getting single coverage as everybody is trying to bracket Jefferson. And you're seeing Addison across the middle. You're seeing Addison on the sideline, catching these long outs from Sam Darnold. He's been great all season long. Raybon, we got, you know, Alexander Madison. We got Jordan Addison, two players that most people who follow the NFL have heard of. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna keep the theme here because those are also two, one Viking and one former Viking. I'm gonna go with another former Viking, Mike Boone, under 8.5 receiving yards. The 8.5 is still available at a few books, but I'm seeing as low as 5.5. I wouldn't take it past 7.5 really, because that's like the median of one reception for a running back. But I do think that he is very likely to either not catch a pass or catch just one, because he has a career target per route rate of just 12%. And Raheem Blackshear, who most of the year he was on special teams. So, his first game back, the first game where they were kind of mixing Boone in for Brooks, Blackshear didn't really play that much, and it was kind of Boone. But then last week we saw Blackshear outsnap Mike Boone 7-4 behind Chuba Hubbard. So Chuba only hit this number 60% of the time. Boone would be lucky to get even half of the receiving workload that Chuba gets, because Boone is, he's more of like a pass blocker if he's going to be in there. And you do have this Bucs defense that blitzes at the third highest rate. So the running backs are likely to stay in the block a lot more. Bryce Young targeting running backs just 12% of the time this year. The league average is about 18.5%. So a lot of reasons to like Mike Boone under receiving yards.
Well, look, because it's convinced me, we're going to be talking more about the Panthers later in the show. I guarantee it. I love the Jordan Addison prop. I'm going with Alexander Madison only because I'm fully invested in the Saints, and I like the negative correlation between Alexander Madison having to gain a lot of yards for the Raiders in order to keep the Raiders in it against the powerful New Orleans Saints at home. Give me Alexander Madison. All right, let's talk about some spreads. It is ugly out there for the sides. Not a lot of games because so many games have been played already. And we've got late breaking lineup changes across the board. Sean Koerner, what's your first play?
Yeah, it's an ugly slate, so I'm going to go with an ugly pick here. These ugly picks are due to win at some point, right? I'm going to go with Jets plus 10. Can't imagine too many people want to bet on the Jets in any game, just given how disappointing their season has been, but especially, against the Bills here. But this is the third biggest luck gap of the week, according to our luck rankings, with the Jets being the unlucky team, of course. So, I think they'll keep it close here, and this is a game where we have a lot of weather today. This is a game we could see a ton of it, heavy rain, winds. So it's probably going to force a more run-heavy game script, keep it lower scoring, maybe closer, which would help the Jets. Which is, the good news for the Jets is they just got Breece Hall back, closer to 100%. He was dealing with a knee injury a couple weeks back. He seems to be fully over it. So I expect him to have a full workload today. They're going to need him if the weather does hold up here. And Rodgers has really struggled against the blitz this year. He ranks 32nd in EPA per dropback out of 34 qualified quarterbacks. But he jumps up to 13th when not facing the blitz. And that's good news because the Bills blitz at one of the lowest rates in the league. And Rodgers, for whatever reason, has been playing well ever since the Jets got eliminated. So maybe he's just playing looser, having fun out there. So I think that helps. They're just playing for pride at this point, whereas the Bills, they have things to play for, but not much. They're just trying to maybe get the second seed, but they have the next 2 weeks to do it. So this is a game where they probably don't want Josh Allen using his legs a ton. They just want him to, stay healthy for the playoffs. So I think the Jets plus 10 is sneaky here.
The Jets have been getting money from professional bettors, knowledgeable bettors all season long. Every single week, money is coming in on the Jets, and every single week, they are disappointing people. There's no doubt, because I can't stand this idea and won't even look at this game from a side perspective, that this is the week Where Aaron Rodgers knows he's on his way out because Woody Johnson's 17-year-old son is about to cut him. Naturally, this will be a week the Jets cover. Simon, talk to me.
Looks like we got a gift from the gambling god, Chad. One last time to bet on Joe Flacco. Give me the Colts
Flacco
minus 7.5. It's really about this Giants team, right? They're one of the worst teams we've seen this season, and a team that looks like they've packed up, given up, and are trying to get that #1 draft pick about 3-4 weeks ago. And you can just see by the players who they've sat, right? They're basically their whole D line's out. They're down to third string tackles. It's just all bad for this Giants team. On the flip side, this Colts team, they're aligning themselves, Chad. They think they can still make the playoffs. And they're a team that's been playing hard these last couple of weeks. You look at the talent level, there's a big difference between both these teams. There is some real serious talent, especially offensively on this Colts team. And, we saw the Joe Flacco experiment, right? He had ups and downs, and eventually it was all downs for the ends there, right? That's why they took him out, put Anthony Richardson back in. But you go back and break it down, he's actually really good against bad defenses. And that's what we have here. We have a really bad defense. So the fact that instead of bringing 2 safeties down now, when they would do that against Anthony Richardson, it's not going to be that way. They're not going to have just all the guys down the box for, stopping the run here. Like Flacco can take it off and go over down deep. So looking at this matchup, I just really love this number for Flacco. The fact that this still is not 10 to me shows great value on this Colts team. It's just the Giants team has totally given up, quit on the season. I just can't see them really showing fight in this game. So the fact that you're still getting a good number in this one, I really do love it. We saw it was 7 last night. Now it's back up to 7.5. I still don't mind that number. Like we've seen it time and time again. As long as it's under 8, I think there's still good value here on this number for this Colts team. So give me Joe Flacco one last time as a big road favorite.
I like it. Look, road favorites are just cashing. I know Evan is going to get into it a little bit more. Favorites in general have been cashing. We saw it again yesterday. I don't mind this one at all. Raybon, I previewed. We talk a little bit more about the Panthers. Make me an honest man.
All right, Chad. Yeah, we're going with the Panthers plus 9.5 here. And I know you've been doing this a long time. So I think I got an opening here because you said you didn't like Sean's game. And then Simon's going with the motivated team. But usually what we see happen last couple weeks of the season is these teams that have 0 to play for, they're the ones that end up playing teams close. So we look at the Panthers, and the real key is Bryce Young's been playing better. And that changes everything because their defense has still been bottom 2 in the league these last 7 weeks. They're 6-1 against the spread in that span because their offense has gone from the worst in the league at negative 0.18 EPA per play, which essentially, like, you're giving up multiple possessions. You're giving away points with your offense every play you run. And now they've been middle of the pack, about 0.05 EPA per play over the last 7 games. And that is really the difference here. That makes this team, more of a team that's going to lose by 1 possession than a team that's going to get blown out, which is what we saw earlier in the year. So I like it here. And this Bucks team, we just saw them lose to Cooper Rush. So it's not like this is a strong Bucks team. They're going to be playing for a chance to kind of stay alive here. And that's what we want. Divisional dogs getting more than a touchdown that lost the previous head-to-head matchup, but kept it close within 2 possessions. They're 59% against the spread since 2003, 120, 84, and 5. So give me the Carolina Panthers, baby.
Yeah, look, a lot of late news on this game between J.C. Horn and Chuba Hubbard, especially. That moved the number considerably beginning yesterday afternoon. I love the Panthers here. I had them at 8.5. When it got to 9.5, I bet them again. I'm pot committed. Maybe I'm a sucker. We've been loving the Panthers all season long. They finally started to become the team that we thought they would be early in the year. I'm going with the Panthers. I'm interested in the Colts. I'm Colts curious. I'll probably end up betting the Colts, but I'm taking the Panthers on Convince Me. Well done, Raybon. Way to get me to bet the Panthers one more time. We all love to fade the public. Let's take a look at where the majority of betting tickets are according to the Action app. For those who are new, the number of tickets generally represents who the public likes. The money percentages also available in the app indicates who the professionals like. Big numbers this week. Simon mentioned the Colts. 75% of the tickets are on the Colts. 73% of the tickets are on the Dolphins. and Tyler Huntley replacing Tua playing the Browns. 90% of the tickets on the Lions on Monday night visiting the San Francisco 49ers. It's time to bring in Director of Research, Evan Abrams. He's going to make us all smarter, hopefully feel better about the bets we are making today. Evan.
This board is unbelievable, Chad. Between the quarterbacks and the weather, this really does feel like week 18 in a week 17, but I feel like we have to start with the weather because 6 games are kind of lighting up on our Action Labs data, basically telling us that some of these games are going to be a mess. So let's start with Tennessee and Jacksonville. Heavy rain and wind, 12 miles an hour, tapering down. But as Sean mentioned in our pre-call, there could be lightning here that might make a delay. So please watch out for that one. Carolina and Tampa Bay. Rain and wind as well. So Tampa Bay is basically just going to be getting the wind and rain that Jacksonville has. And it's going to be going that way during the game. So it's kind of a wait and see. Buffalo and the Jets might be the worst of the day. There's rain and wind, but it's starting at 12 miles an hour, going up to about 17 miles an hour at halftime. Now we can see gusts up to 40 miles an hour in the second half in this one. This one is supposed to be an absolute mess, and the wind in Buffalo is going to be wild. Dallas and Philly. This is just straight up wind. Now we're going to get 13 to 14 miles an hour, mostly in the second half. So something to watch out for with Kenny Pickett under center. Miami and Cleveland, also a mess, 16 to 18 miles an hour. Now this is going to increase as we go. Gusts up to 35 miles an hour in the second half in this one. Now the total is down to 33 in this game between Tyler Huntley and DTR. This would be the lowest total for the Dolphins since 2005. So some history there. And then finally, Atlanta and Washington. Sunday Night Football, of course, also supposed to get some weather. It's rain and wind, scattered showers. Wind supposed to be worse in the first half than the second half, but we have so much going on today with such little games. It's actually kind of interesting. And then I got 2 more for you before I pass it on. So I tweeted about this last night. We've talked about it on the shows. Favorites just continue to roll. They are 53 and 14, 79% since week 13. And this week so far in week 17, they are 6-0. Now this season favorites 176 and 70, 72%. Over a full year, that would be the 3rd best mark since 1980. So that is kind of where we sit from a market point of view. And then I'll end here. Jets Bills, that game that's supposed to be an absolute mess. Well, the spread is 10, which is massive for Aaron Rodgers in his career. 260 career starts. He's only closed above plus 8.5 once. That was back in 2022, of course, against Josh Allen and the Bills. And for what it's worth, Josh is 1-8 against the spread in his last 9 games as a double-digit favorite. So we'll see if Rodgers continues the magic or Buffalo starts moving towards Kansas City.
Kind of unseasonably warm on
Correct.
the East Coast. So cold is not a factor
Nope.
in these games like Buffalo and other places like it normally would be. Here's my question for you, Evan. You don't have to answer it now, but maybe you could throw it in the chat. We can update people. In those totals where it's as low as 33, like that Miami-Cleveland game, historically, what ends up happening to the final score? Does it come in below or above that closing line for a game when the total is this low? You don't have to tell me now if you don't know.
My guess would be a lot of wind would be involved in some of those, but I'll throw some stuff in the chat.
Let's see. Let's just find out. We'll find out. We'll look at it in the chat. We'll update before the show is over. By the way, talk about segue. Evan is going to be looking stuff up, and he's going to be using our subscription. Do you want access to all of our experts' picks as soon as they happen? What about our pro prop projections powered by Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon? You get all that. Plus real-time bet and money percentages with Action Pro. Use code POWER20 and get $20 off the annual rate. That's POWER20 for $20 off. All right. Evan was talking a lot about weather. We're going to go into some totals, which is always impacted by weather. Sean Koerner, you're up first.
So I'm going to go with this toilet bowl matchup of Titans Jaguars, and I'm actually going to go with the first half under 19.5. And sort of fitting for this toilet bowl, we're going to see some heavy rains kind of washing these two teams down the drain after just horrible seasons by each side. But I think the most of the rain is going to be early in the game. So much so we might actually see, lightning delay here. Either way, I think there's going to be, more rain in the first half here, which is why I like the first half under. But similar to the Bears Seahawks first half under, I went with on our last show. This is a matchup where both these teams have a much easier matchup than usual, where they're expected to trail at a much lower rate than their season average. And I've noticed, teams tend to be a little bit more run heavy, conservative early in these spots, maybe waiting for the other team to make the first mistake for a change. Plus, Jaguars will be without left tackle Walker Little due to an ankle injury. They just signed him to a long-term deal. So his loss is going to be pretty big here, especially what could be more of a trench war for them. Plus, the rain and wind will probably limit deep balls to both Brian Thomas Jr., my favorite receiver, and Calvin Ridley. So, this is a spot where maybe once one of these teams gets in a trailing game script, we'll see them be a little bit more aggressive. But early on, I like the under here. And both these teams have combined to go 17 and 11 in first half unders on the season. So one of the many reasons why I like going with the first half under in this game.
Gosh, talk about a corner TV game where no one's going to be interested except
Yeah.
50% of the fan base for both teams. This is a watch Netflix and chill kind of afternoon if you're a fan of the Titans and the Jaguars. Simon, talk to me.
Yeah, how blessed were we, Sean, on Thursday? We bet our first half bets. We won and have to watch a second more of that game. What a great Thursday that was. What a terrible game that game was. We're going with the Jets-Bills over 45, Chad. And this is really about people overreacting to this weather. I got a guy up in Buffalo. He's saying this is light drizzle for Buffalo this time of year. This ain't nothing. He's outside in his shorts. It's 56 degrees in Buffalo right now. So I look at this as just two of the worst defenses in football quietly. Like the Jets defense, terrible. Bills defense, terrible. I mean, they literally were getting lit up by a rookie a week ago. This is just two really bad teams defensively. And on the flip side, isn't this everything for Josh Allen? Isn't this the game Josh Allen needs to score 45 points to get back to where he was at a couple weeks ago in this MVP look? It's gone the other way, Chad. And he's been hearing it. Like, he has to know everyone's talking about Lamar making this late push, and he's got the better numbers and all the love for Lamar. He needs a big blowout win, a staple win here. And on the flip side with the Jets, I just feel like they're going to be force-feeding Devontae Adams. Like, they know their records, they need to be broken today. They need to be broken through the air. So, to me, it's just a game that feels like both offenses are going to be pressing and pushing the ball downfield. And that's good for me because I think both guys are going to turn the ball over. Like, I like Rodgers turn the ball over in this game. I like Josh Allen turn the ball over in this game. It's just a lot of guys going to be trying to move the ball downfield, where that's where mistakes tend to happen, especially when it's raining like it's supposed to in this game. So the fact that this number's come down, I was going to stay away from it, but it's come down all the way now from 48, Chet. And it's crossed a couple key numbers. Now it's down to 45. That to me is just too much movement for what they're just speculated on, right? They don't know how bad the weather's going to be. It's kind of speculation at this point. So to me, the fact that it's going to be warm in Buffalo in late December and that Josh Allen needs to score points, this feels like this number's moved too much. And just about how bad these defenses have been playing, especially since week 9. They've both been struggling, especially against the pass. So I like this to go over. Give me 45 over.
I like this idea. Very contrarian and interesting because the number has come down so much, and it's all based on the weather report that Evan alluded to. Also, to your point about the MVP odds, those have really shrunk. Josh Allen used to be the runaway favorite, and then over the past 2 weeks, between what Lamar did against the Giants, throwing 5 touchdowns, how Josh Allen couldn't put away the Patriots in real blowout fashion, and then what Lamar did this past week on the Christmas Day game against the Texans, again looking brilliant. Those MVP odds are very tight right now. A lot of chatter about Lamar winning his second straight MVP. I like this idea, Simon. Raybon, what's your play?
Going with the Giants Colts under 40.5. And first of all, we have Joe Flacco now. And yes, he is an upgrade on Anthony Richardson, but he can complete passes. And that actually means less clock stoppages because, the ball is going to be caught and they wind the clock. And he's also more likely to take sacks. And that's a big thing too, because, Anthony Richardson wasn't taking too many sacks. He was, for the most part, able to get out of harm's way. But Flacco's going to take a lot of sacks, from this Giant team. And then on the other side, you have Malik Neighbors questionable for the Giants. Do they let him go, all out for the whole game? That's questionable. Drew Lock is the worst quarterback in the league in terms of EPA per play this year. That has at least 100 plays. So we know what the Giants are. I mean, they scored, 7 points indoors against the Falcons last week. Now you're out in MetLife Stadium, outdoors. Going to see some wind in this one. And also, this is another one of these fade the public spots. 76% of the bets, 72% of the money are on the over in this game, yet the total has not moved up at all. So these MetLife unders, when the wind is at least 8 miles per hour, which you're expecting about 10 to 12, 63 and 41, 61%. So give me Giants Colts under 40.5.
Yeah, look, you've been cashing these MetLife unders. We did it last week with the Rams and the Jets. It was not even close to a sweat. I love this one. I'm so tempted by Simon's over on the Bills and the Jets, but Evan just put this into the chat, responding to my question earlier about these low totals with high winds that keep dropping. Low totals under 40 with 10 plus mile per hour winds, 64% to the under the past decade. These unders are 78% since 2021. The 3 games that apply to that today: Philadelphia, Cleveland, Jacksonville. Give me the Jacksonville Titans. Under first half, I'm going with Koerner. Nice job. I got swayed at the very last second by Evan. I'm so predictable.
Thank you, Evan.
Listen, you guys know I love the stats, and one of my favorite stats in the Action Network universe is our luck rankings. For those who want to know more, check them out in the Action app or actionnetwork.com. This week's luck rankings matchup. Oh, I wish I had read this. The luck total, Jets and the Bills. Simon is against that idea. The one side, the Giants are the unluckiest team. Simon is against that idea. Oh my God. And then we got some Titans and Jacks conversation. Good for us. Nick Giffen, what's your first bet?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll be against Simon this week a couple times here. I'm going to take
I
the
hate
Jets
when
and
you guys
Bills.
don't get along.
I know. Well, look, if you're going to take the over, take the first half over, I would say, because the second half is where I'm taking the under. You can get under 21.5. I tracked under 22.5 because it was available about an hour before the show, but now it's 21.5 everywhere. Still like that because not too often you're going to land on 22 for a half. But look, the second half wins, and this is a luck under, minus 5.4 luck total, which means these teams have been, scoring and allowing more points than expected based off of the, play-by-play data. But in the second half, these winds are going to pick up to 15 to 20 miles an hour. I put in the exact zip code of the Buffalo Bills Stadium, Orchard Park, New York. Wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour in the second half. 15 to 20 sustained, 40 mile an hour gusts. Chance of precipitation 100%. Plus, if the Bills lead, which is the more likely outcome given they're, big favorites, the pace should slow in the second half by more than a second per play as well, based off these teams' splits, when leading and trailing. Both Buffalo plays slower than league average when leading, and the Jets play slower than league average when trailing. So I think we got to go second half under here in Buffalo, New York. But Chad, here's how also you can use the luck rankings. I tracked under 47.5 on Monday for this game. Now it's down to 44.5. Get that closing line value.
Listen, that Jets stat that when they're trailing, their time of possession per play is the one amongst the worst in the league, is the most Jeff Ulbrich stat you could possibly imagine. This guy is such an idiot. He couldn't be worse at this job of head coaching. All right, Nick, next.
Yeah, we're going to go with the Giants plus 7.5. I don't feel great about it. I bet it 8 earlier this week when we all thought it would be Anthony Richardson. This game has a luck gap of 38%, anything above 30% this time of year. We take the unlucky team, and they've been covering a little over 60% rate. This, for me, is possibly all about just some Drew Lock positive regression. His adjusted net yards per attempt, which factors in things like sacks, interceptions, touchdowns, in addition to yards, is just 2.67 this season. That's terrible. I mean, that is bad. But his previous season worst has been 5.3 in a season. That was the year he made his most starts as well, 13 starts for the Denver Broncos. And his career prior to this year has been almost 5.6. So there's room for positive regression here with Drew Lock. I understand, he's in a different situation now with a worse Giants offensive line, some different receivers, maybe Malik Neighbors questionable, but in the long term, Drew Lock is a better quarterback than 2.67 adjusted net yards per attempt. It's kind of the same thing we saw with Bryce Young a little bit. I know they're in different stages of their career, but Bryce Young's adjusted net yards per attempt earlier this year before he got benched was like 1. And now it's at a respectable level. So I think we can expect some positive Drew Lock regression. And this Indianapolis Colts pass defense, right? They play that zone. So I think you'll be able to find some spots in the zones, especially potentially with Wan'Dale Robinson there. So give me New York Jets plus 7.5 as the unlucky team.
Nick Giffen expressing the height of optimism, believing that Drew Lock is better than he is and that today is the day. All that's going to turn it around. I like your spirit, kid. What's your last one?
Yeah, I mean, hey, Raybon mentioned that teams with nothing to play for trend as well. I'm not abandoning that either. But the third one, we're going to go to that Jags-Titans game. I know Sean has the first half under. I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars team total under 19.5. You can get that at minus 104. This game is a luck under, minus 5.6 luck total. Look, luck totals this year, 20 and 11 overall, which is 64.5%. And luck unders right at 60% and over a 200-game sample size since 2018. Jacksonville, 4th lowest luck team total of the week at minus 3.75. And also, quarterback Mac Jones, I thought this was interesting, has the worst QB coverage matchup of the week by far. So basically the schemes that the opposing defenses throw, Mac Jones does about 16% worse against than his average production. And his average production is already really bad. The next worst in the metric this week by comparison would be Jaden Daniels at around minus 7%. So, shout out Gilles Gallant for taking Mac Jones' interception as well. This game will be windy, and it's a tank fest, right? Both these teams are tanking. So if the Titans get ahead, Jaguars don't necessarily need to score. So let's take the Jaguars team total under 19.5.
Finally, a stat that defines how bad Mac Jones really is. Don't forget, Nick just mentioned Gilles Gallant. He's coming up the bottom half of the hour with the touchdown show with Brian Matthews. Well done, Nick. Let's look at Sunday Night Football. Michael Penix traveling to Washington, taking on his fellow rookie Jaden Daniels. Washington Commanders are 3.5-point favorites. Sean Koerner, what is your play?
I'm going to go with Zach Ertz anytime touchdown at plus 300 here. And, next week 18, is a fun week to bet on, player props due to incentives. But books are well aware of those, and they adjust the odds accordingly. I think a sneaky way to get ahead of that is to bet on players with incentives this week in week 17. And Zach Ertz is one of them. If he has a big 2-week stretch here, he can make millions of dollars. And the touchdown market is one of them. He has 4 touchdowns right now. He needs 2 more to make an extra $250,000. He kind of set up his contract this way to kind of make a lot of money on incentives with a lower base. So I think he'll be going for that. And obviously Terry McLaurin is Jaden Daniels' top target in the red zone, but his next best target is Zach Ertz. He has 6 end zone targets this year. So if the Falcons sell out, double team McLaurin here, Daniels would likely pivot to Ertz in the red zone. Plus he has that incentive. So this is one where I'm showing some slight value in our prop tool. But when you consider, the next couple weeks, he's going to be really trying to score touchdowns, get catches. I think that gives him an even better boost.
Love it. Love the way you're looking at this. Simon, talk to me.
Just real quick, Chad, looks like the smart money is following Dr. Nick here. It's down. That Jets total is down to 44.5. So people are really scared about some wind and rain.
All right, well, then we got to hammer the over.
Let's go with Atlanta plus 3.5. It's really a number that's come down all week. I mean, you talked about it on Sunday. It was 5. despite all the money pouring on Washington, now it's down to 3.5. So just let you know what side the professionals are. They have been wrong many times this season in this exact spot, right? The dogs have not been hitting like they should. Normally, this would be an absolute smash spot, but I still think there's great value in this number. Like, to me, this number should still be 3. It's way too much respect to this Washington team that, let's be honest, they're not the same team as they were early in the year. Even last week, it felt like they got away with one. They stole a game there, and we kind of have the numbers that back it up, right? Teams off 5 turnovers, they're 26, 45, and 3 against the spread in the following game. Like, that's real numbers there to back up that teams that get super lucky doesn't carry over to the next game, right? It kind of bites them the following game. Now, this is an amazing stat here from Evan. Teams after beating Philly this year, they're 0-2 against the spread in their next game. So since 2020, Chad, they're 9-20 and 9-21 against the spread. So it's the least profitable spot to be after facing an opponent after a win. So there's something that goes on when the Eagles just beat these teams up and these teams give it all to win, and they kind of have a letdown game the following game. So a lot of these trends point to this Atlanta team, but at the end of the day, it's really a bet on Penix. I just feel like he opens up this offense in so many different ways. And we've seen this Washington defense has regressed as the second half of the season comes along, and their biggest weakness right now is against the run. Guess who's the third best running back in football right now that no one's really talking about? Robinson. He's been incredible down the stretch for this Atlanta team. And you saw it last week. I mean, they really leaned on him in that game because it's a rookie quarterback at this point. So when they get to the red zone, it's no more throwing these 50-50 balls. You want to let your guy run it in and Robinson. So I just love this matchup for Atlanta's offense. And then I didn't even talk about their defense, how much they've improved. Just the pass rush has got so much better for this Atlanta team. I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Daniels. And again, offensively, I think Atlanta has the firepower to kind of outscore this Washington team. So I love this number at 3.5.
Yeah, that Commanders team has been regressing really since November, partially because Jaden Daniels' injury, but also they just haven't been playing as well. And how could they not regress considering how hot they started? Raybon, last pick of the day.
Let's go with the under 46.5 in this one. So I know, this game was flexed to Sunday Night Football. You got these 2 rookie quarterbacks. Everyone's excited, want to see some offense, but this sets up to me as more of a lower scoring game. You got 2 rookie quarterbacks, defensive minded head coaches on both sides. Both teams this could have playoff implications for both teams. It likely will. And you have weather in this game. There's going to be some wind. There may be some rain, there's humidity, which tends to trend toward the under as well. So Simon also mentioned the Falcon pass rush, and that's something that, we didn't really expect to happen, but it's been 4 games now, and they've had 16 sacks over those last 4 games, just 10 in the first 11 games. So they're clearly getting home, more over these last 4 games. And Washington's missing their right tackle, Wiley. No sacks allowed all year on 490 pass blocking snaps for Wiley. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a down. They do have some good depth on that line, but I do think there's going to be a little bit of a downgrade. And you're also missing you're down to your 3rd string outside receiver opposite McLaurin because you're missing Noah Brown, Diami Brown. Now, Zacchaeus, he had a big game last week, but you're going to miss, some of these guys in the run game because now you have Zacchaeus is like 5'8", $170, Jamison Crowder. These guys are really going to run block. So you might go a little more heavy sets to get Ertz in there with, another tight end. So that also kind of plays to the under because you don't see as much explosives. So, like the under in this one. I think Atlanta does just hand the ball to Bijan a ton. And last week they played a worse Giant run defense, and they handed the ball off about 35, 38 times, and they had success. But the one thing they didn't really have is explosives. And I think that's what we could see in this one, where you're probably playing it a little closer to the line of scrimmage, stacking the box a little more with the rookie quarterback, but you also don't want to make too many mistakes either side, especially Washington coming off a 5 turnover game. So I just think it's going to be these defensive-minded head coaches, playoffs on the line. They're going to play a little more close to the vest. And there is one thing I should point out, because I usually like to wait until right up before the kickoff to bet, unders, because you usually see at the last minute, public gets in, hits the over. But this is one I'll be paying attention to throughout the day, because you could have a situation where Washington, if the Bucs get upset by the Panthers, Washington may have a bit less to play for, especially if Philly also goes on to win. So that is something you might want to look at and bet this total before the before the 4 o'clock window or something or before the in the middle of the 1 o'clock window, because this could actually go down if you get the Panthers with the upset.
Good advice. Also good advice. Taking the Falcons plus 3.5, which is what I'm going to do. I like all three of these, though. If you like all three of these, you can get them at plus 2,200 for a same game parlay. This has been our show. Good luck to everybody today. Stick around for the touchdown show coming up.
Thank you, Chad, and the whole Convince Me crew, and welcome to the Touchdown Show for Week 17. I'm Gilles Gallant with the Action Network, joined as always with Brian Matthews, and each week we cover the anytime touchdown market in the NFL. We're going to have best bets for the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern games, have some touchdown parlays. We're going to do a same game parlay for touchdowns as well for Falcons and Commanders for Sunday Night Football. And BMAT, we're also going to have a nice little touchdown collab with a guy that we really like this week. We were pretty successful with that with Mike Evans a couple weeks ago. Hopefully we can capture that magic again today. So let's get going. We've got our best anytime touchdown bets. We'll start off with the lowest odds. We'll work our way up. We're going to finish off with some spicy touchdown bets. Those are usually the ones where they're 10 to 1, 14 to 1, that kind of thing. Anything with some spice to it. So let's get started and look at the 4 p.m. slate. I'm going right to that Packers-Vikings game. And there's one guy that I think we both love. I think a lot of people are going to love him this week. And that's Jayden Reed with the Packers. He's right now around plus 190. I'm going to take him for an anytime touchdown this week. And I just think this is a prime matchup for Reed. He hasn't scored in the last 3 weeks, BMAT, but again, I think part of that was a lot of man coverage matchups because when you look at Reed's metrics, he has just been a zone beater. 3.15 yards per route run, a 20% target share, and they're facing the Vikings who play zone at the 4th highest rate, and they've allowed 17 touchdowns to wide receivers this year. That's actually tied for 27th in the NFL. Another thing, too, no Christian Watson this week. And if you look back, Christian Watson has missed some time, but even this season when he missed week 5 versus the Rams, replayed season high in snaps. He had 4 touchdowns in 5 games last year when Watson missed time as well, 36 targets. And then, of course, you have the historical context, like where he scored on the Vikings earlier this year. He had 2 touchdowns when he played in Minnesota last year. So this one just checks a lot of boxes for me. So Jayden Reed for an anytime touchdown at plus 190 is what I'm going to take as my best bet for week 17. B-Matt, before we hear about what your best bet is, talk to me a little bit more about Jayden Reed in this matchup and why we like him.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, look, whenever the Packers play a team that runs predominantly zone coverage, like Jayden Reed is the guy you go to for that. You know, we look at, all right, well, who's their guy when they play man coverage? Well, when it's healthy, it's Christian Watson and Don Wicks as well. So you look at it and you go, okay, the matchup is perfect. There's historical success against the team. So when both of those things line up and then Christian Watson's out, you get that third factor. Yeah, I love it. And I think, you know, a little foreshadowing to the spicy picks a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because when we get to the spicy section, you may hear Jayden Reed's name again. All right. So Jayden Reed, anytime touchdown is my best bet for week 17. B-Matt, what is your best bet for week 17?
Yeah, so I had a different best bet up until about 25 minutes before recording.
Yeah.
Hat tip to you for sending me the weather report up at Orchard Park. The initial pick was Devontae Adams, and I was pumped about that pick at plus 162. Aaron Rodgers' 500th career touchdown pass is incoming, and Devontae Adams has openly expressed that he would like to be the one to catch it. It also happens to be the coverage, that he's going up against. He sees a 30% first read share, so he's been going off lately. So, but there's a 100% chance of rain, about 30 mile an hour to 40 mile an hour winds. Yeah. So I'm pivoting off. Best bet is going to be now Tyjae Spears at plus 115.
Okay.
And so look, this is a guy who, if you actually go back and look over the last 2 games, he scored twice in each of his last 2 games. Tony Pollard is out this week, so he will be the workhorse, and he should spearhead the backfield. See what I did there? But look, he's involved in the ground game and the passing game. Scored, 1 receiving touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown last week. And then you look at it, most of his runs, about 2/3 of his runs, come on gap schemes, and the Jaguars happen to give up the 4th most yards per carry on gap runs. So it lines up well for him. Even if the weather is, not great, he's a running back, and it can be the short passing game and the run. So 4 touchdowns over his last 2 weeks in a good matchup. I'll take it at plus money, especially plus 115 for the mild pick.
Well, with Mason Rudolph, you know that they're going to have to rely on the run a little bit more. And Jacksonville, even though they are a little susceptible to the pass just with that man coverage, they're not really doing anything to stop the run either, right? Like they're 23rd in defensive DVOA versus the run this season. So Tyjae Spears, I think he also had probably the most picturesque touchdown that we've seen this season, where he
That
got
was
kind of
nice,
carried
yeah.
over the goal line like that. So yeah, I think Devontae Adams, just to go back to that, it's not to say that we don't want to bet Devontae Adams. We want to. It's the weather that right now that
Yes.
is really making us hesitant about whether or not there'll be successful passing in that game. You're going to see that total probably drop as we get closer to kickoff, which is why I just wanted to give you guys a little peek behind the curtain that even though we like Devontae, like he's one of the first picks on my 180 challenge this week, we're not going to try to tempt fate here. We're going to try to get guys that we want to score. And Tyjae, like you said, has had a lot of success over the last few weeks, and no Tony Pollard now, so it is essentially his backfield. So Tyjae Spears is BMAT's anytime touchdown bet for Week 17. I'm on Jaden Reed. Now, before we talk about Sunday Night Football, if you want access to all of Action Pro projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription. Access includes exclusive player prop picks from Sean Koerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today. Use code POWER20 at sign up. One more time, that's POWER20 at sign up for $20 off. All right, B-Man, now let's talk Sunday Night Football. Looking right at the top of the list for Falcons Commanders, we've got a total of 47.5. Jaden Daniels coming off a 5 passing touchdown game against the Eagles, but it's the run game that looks to be the emphasis for scoring, with Bijan Robinson at -120 and Brian Robinson Jr. at -110. Then you've got Terry McLaurin, 10 touchdowns on the year at +110. Jaden Daniels right behind him at +145. Then you've got your guy, USC Trojan, Drake London at +150, along with Darnell Mooney, Tyler Algier, and Zach Ertz, Olamide Zaccheaus. Rounding out that top 10 is Ray McLeod at +370. B-Man, I'm looking at this list right now, and it's really tough to find value. I feel like a lot of these guys that we normally like, especially like a Terry McLaurin or even a Jaden Daniels, like they're kind of steamed right now. And not to say that Jaden Daniels couldn't run on this defense or Terry McLaurin isn't going to score, but the value is just all but gone. And then I'm looking at the run game here, and Bijan Robinson, he's starting to get a little bit more going, and Brian Robinson as well. I'll be honest, man, I don't know if we should overcomplicate this. What do you think if we just did a Robinson parlay?
Yeah, I was about to say, man, you just said it. You kept saying Bijan Robinson, Brian Robinson. All I heard is B-Rob. I think let's not get cute here. Let's just go with the B-Rob special. Worked for me.
Well, part of it, let's talk it out though, just why we're going to do B-Rob and the B-Rob parlay, essentially, because it actually comes out to around +234 at DraftKings. But part of the reason, again, why I think we're going to do this instead is like some of these guys, like Darnell Mooney is probably who I like if I'm just betting a single bet, but again, it's kind of here or there. Plus, there's no Marshawn Lattimore, so I think the Commanders be a little more susceptible to the deep pass. But at the same time, Darnell Mooney by himself pays more than just those two. So if you're going to bet Darnell, just bet him on his own kind of thing. But even just somebody like Zach Ertz, for example, you see that his target rate tends to go up when the Commanders are trailing right now. And right now, the Commanders being favorites in this game, they're probably expected to lead in this game. That means I think Zach Ertz's target rate will likely drop, probably won't be used as much. So yeah, Brian Robinson and Bijan Robinson, let's just keep it simple, man. +234, +230. Let's just put a unit on that, and we can root for running backs. What do you think of that?
I'm in. Love it.
All right. no twist in his arm this week on B-Rob and the B-Rob parlay. All right. Now, that's the B-Rob parlay for Sunday Night Football. Let's move on to now our second best bet of the day, and you are looking at the Raiders-Saints game. Who do you like?
Yep, I'm a glutton for punishment, so we're going to the Raiders side, and medium pick is going to be Brock Bowers, anytime touchdown at +210. So, look, I bet him earlier this season on the show, and I think he had like 11 targets. He did everything but score, and so we're going to do that again. And look, it's a great matchup, and I look now, Brock Bowers, if you look at 4 of his last 5 games with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback, he has 8 or more receptions. That is an absurd number. So, obviously, O'Connell, AOC really likes, throwing the ball to Bowers, and for this sake, I like that. So, volume is king, 13 targets, 11 receptions last week, didn't score. I like backing a guy off a game that he didn't score. And then you also look, the Saints ranked 26 in DVOA against the position. So everything lines up for Brock Bowers. It's the end of the season. You got to keep him going. He is just on fire right now. So I think he's just going to, again, see another 10 to 15 targets.
You know what I like too about Brock is that at the start of the season and over the first maybe 6 games where he was getting a lot of that volume, he's facing teams that were more zone heavy. And so when you would look at his metrics, he'd have this 35% first read, target share, all the stuff that you love. But against man coverage, his metrics they just weren't as good as compared to what he was doing against zone. But as the season has gone on, you're actually seeing that change a little bit where now he's now the first read target share against man coverage as well. So those metrics are starting to shift. The reason why I bring that up is because the Saints, they still play man coverage at a top 5 rate. So he's going to see a lot of one-on-one looks rather. So I think Brock Bowers is a solid bet here, especially when you're getting a price over plus 200. I think that's key as well if you're going to have AOC as your quarterback, that you want to have Brock at plus 210. But again, you mentioned it, volume is king, and there's nobody that's getting more volume right now outside of Jamar Chase than Brock Bowers, for example. So, all right, I am going to pivot now to that Panthers-Buccaneers game. If you recall, when Nick Giffen was on the show a few weeks ago, he was heavy on Mike Evans to score a touchdown in that game around plus 130. And now you're seeing odds for, Mike Evans this week, probably minus 130. You know what I mean? So it's shifting a lot. And I think that narrative is kind of why I wanted to pivot off of the Buccaneers passing offense. And now I'm looking at the Panthers passing offense. And I love Adam Thielen to score a touchdown this week. I bet him at plus 250. And Thielen is now becoming Bryce Young's go-to wide receiver. He has led the Panthers in targets in 4 straight games. He only has 5 red zone targets, BMAT, but they've all come over the last 5 games. That's one thing that's really good and encouraging about him. At least one in each game since coming back from that injury off of injured reserve. And then, of course, you're looking at a zone matchup. That's historically what the Buccaneers play a lot. And Thielen has been the Panthers' best wide receiver versus zone, leads the team in target share, yards per route run. And the Bucs, like I said, they just played at the 6th highest rate. So, and when they played earlier this season, he scored a touchdown. He probably could have had 2 touchdowns in that game. He was just a force from a receiving standpoint. So Adam Thielen at plus 250 to score a touchdown against that Buccaneers secondary. B-Matt, before we talk about who we like for a collab touchdown bet, talk to me about the Panthers and Buccaneers. And do you expect a lot of scoring in this matchup, or maybe even success throwing the ball between these two offenses?
Yeah, I think I do actually, and I think we joked at the beginning of the season, we're like, yeah, we can't take it's hard to take a Panthers player unless you're getting 10-1, and it's like a Tommy Tremble, right? Where it's like you're taking kind of a dart throw. But now you're like, man, Bryce Young's cooking. He's playing really well. So
handling the pressure. That's the one thing I've really noticed. He's able to shift around in the pocket.
Getting rid of the ball quickly too, and not making bad decisions. Just taking what the defense gives you. If they're going to pressure you, take the quick throw. And also,
especially because the Bucs, they still blitz a lot too, right? If they're going to be blitzing a lot, they got to get it off to somebody who has a short A dot, and that maybe tends to go with Thielen. Xavier Legette, even though I like him to score, and he has pretty decent odds, he's still dealing with that wrist injury. I'm not really sure. He was he was struggling to practice all week, so I'm just not really sure about Legette whether he'll have success. So I think we just keep it simple. We go with Adam Thielen at plus 250 and let the chips fall as they go. All right, so now, B-Matt, let's talk about a bet that we both like, and we're going back to that Titans game, and which again, not a really high total. A lot of people will be looking at Calvin Ridley in this game as well, being a revenge spot. B-Matt, I think we need to just take Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Right now, it's undeniable that this man scores a ton of touchdowns. He's got 25 catches on the year, 9 touchdowns. And then, of course, when you look at his road game spot, they're going to play against Jacksonville, heavy man coverage team. 6 of his 9 touchdowns this year have been scored in road games. We've talked about Mason Rudolph as well, a quarterback. Mason Rudolph, 5 starts this year. Westbrook-Ikhine has 4 touchdowns with Mason Rudolph at quarterback on 21 targets. It's insane. And so I'm not saying that Calvin Ridley won't score on this defense. He's actually been pretty good against man coverage this year, but I would just argue that maybe the Jaguars aren't totally stupid, and that maybe they'll probably put a little bit more coverage, maybe a man up top, to kind of cover that deep bomb to Calvin Ridley. So I just think Westbrook-Ikhine, especially anytime we're getting odds over plus 300, I think it's a solid look here. Talk to me about Westbrook-Ikhine and why you like to collab on this one this week with me.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. 4 touchdowns in 5 games. It's a fantastic matchup. It's not just, all right, well, he scored 4 touchdowns in 5 games. We're trying to squeeze a square peg into a round hole here. It's a great matchup too. So on top of the fact that, yes, he's had a ton of success. And I don't know that he can maintain this conversion ratio for.
I feel like I said that 3 weeks ago, though.
But I was just about to say, we said this earlier in the season. We're like, I don't know that this is sustainable. And here we are talking about it again. So I guess at some point we just have to realize, like, it's a thing. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Mason Rudolph, that's a thing. So yes, absolutely in at plus 360. Think that's way too high for this.
I also feel like if it was Will Levis starting a quarterback, I don't know if I would feel as confident about it. You know, like I'd be a little more worried about turnovers. And not to say that Rudolph doesn't have his turnover issues as well, but there's just something a little bit more calm and measured with Mason Rudolph. Like I would rather put a cap on the ceiling of what this offense can do if that means that the turnovers are lower. Like, and I think even they know that in that offense that Brian Callahan. So that's why they're going with Mason Rudolph instead of Will Levis for the final 2 games of the year. So Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, we are going to collab on that for an anytime touchdown. It's around plus 360 at FanDuel. Now, BMAT, we're going to move on to the spicy touchdown bets now, but we've got another collab that we really like. We already talked about him at the top of the show. Let's collab on Jayden Reed for 2 touchdowns. We got it at 18-1 yesterday. I'm seeing it around 16-1 now. Still play it at those odds. Jayden Reed, I think, is somebody that could really explode in this game. You've got a higher total around 48.5 and a shorter spread. So there's probably neither team, I think, is going to take their foot off the gas when it comes to trying to score. And I do expect the Packers to play with pace, short passing to offset that blitz, which I think fits Jayden Reed, who's got the lower ADOT of the wide receivers, uses that screen game, maybe some jet sweeps. And as I mentioned, again, he scored 2 touchdowns in Minnesota last year. He's got two touchdown games this year. He had two touchdown games last season. So very short career span, and we're already seeing 4 2-touchdown games for Jayden Reed. So before we talk about what your other spicy touchdown bet is, do you have anything else that you wanted to mention about Jayden Reed and why we like to ladder him in this spot?
No, I was gonna say save some room for me to add an explanation, but you took care of it.
I got a mouthful. I can't help it. Like when I saw the odds and I saw this matchup, this was my favorite bet of the week, outside of like Marvin Mims, who we cashed on yesterday at plus 450. That like just the 2 guys that I was like, oh my god, I'm going to do everything I can to try to cash in on these guys. So Jayden Reed for 2 touchdowns at 18-1. That is a spicy touchdown bet that both BMAT and I are collabing on this week. But you have a second spicy touchdown bet. Please tell us what you like.
Yeah, so I'm going to go, look, I'm going to stick with another rookie here, and I'm going to go Malik Neighbors, 2 touchdowns at 22-1. I just think, all right, so Drew Lock is starting at quarterback. We do know this. I think Neighbors is due for a blow-up game, and if you look in the 3 games with Drew Lock at quarterback, Neighbors has a 28.3% target share and a 39% first read share. 39. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't compute. That's outrageous. So if I'm going to go on the volume is king, and we're going to take a guy who I think has, just about as much upside as anybody does in the NFL, especially in a potentially trailing game script. And if Locke can get a few of those targets on him, I think that Malik Neighbors at 22-1 could end up being something we look back on and say, hey, this might be a good price. So Neighbors for 2 touchdowns.
Well, and the other thing too is this is typically what I do with my 2 touchdown bets is I like the ladder. So I'll usually take the anytime and the 2 touchdown bet. Right now I'm seeing Malik Neighbors around plus 225 for an anytime touchdown. So that's something just to consider. Like what I'll usually do is I'll put like 0.75 of a unit on the anytime and then 0.25 on the 2 touchdowns, just to make it so that way it's only 1 unit total that I'll put in for exposure. But Malik Neighbors 2 touchdowns at 22-1. Like I'm pretty sure 2 of those 3 games with Drew Lock, he's had at least 11 targets, right? So that, like, again, when you're getting a guy like that, I don't care how inept that offense is. It's not like the Colts secondary is that good. You know what I mean? Where, you're facing a juggernaut or anything like that. So Malik Neighbors, 2 touchdowns at 22-1. My second 2 touchdown bet is actually from that Jets-Bills game. And part of the reason why I think we pivoted off of Devontae is because I'm going to lean more on the run game. I'm going with Breece Hall for 2 touchdowns at 12-1. So Breece Hall is, been a bit of a struggle probably this year. If you're a fantasy player, you probably took him somewhere in the top 3, and you're probably pretty disappointed with how the season has gone. But I do think that this is a matchup where he could see more usage. Heavy winds and rain coming for Buffalo. And historically, Breece Hall, he's actually been pretty decent versus the Bills. 100 or more rush yards in 2 of 3 career games, a receiving touchdown in 1. And the Bills' weakness this year, B-Matt, has really been defending pass-catching running backs. A lot of that time is maybe because they've been in a leading game script, so teams are just playing hurry up and throw into their running backs to get the ball moving. But I think there is something there because they are 31st in targets, catches, and touchdowns to running backs this year. Breece Hall, third for all running backs in the NFL, with the third most targets with 70 behind Alvin Kamara and Devon Achane. And then Devontae Adams, the other thing too is that maybe something that could have been a little bit of trepidation is that he didn't really practice much this week. He did a limited practice on Friday, but he missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday. So I think Breece Hall, with the history of being the kind of the bell cow in this offense, he's really been getting a lot more carries, more than Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen over the last few weeks, that I think Breece Hall could have 2 touchdowns in this game where you just kind of, let's take a step back from the passing game and let's just rely on the run game. And I think Breece Hall is the guy that we could get here for 2 touchdowns at 12-1. So B-Matt, we've got one more thing on deck, a 180 challenge touchdown parlay. But again, do you think that's maybe a wise decision where maybe we pivot to the run game aspect of that game instead of looking at the passing upside between these two offenses?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was important too. Coach Jeff Ulrich said recently that, they were asked, like, are you going to kind of taper down Breece Hall's workload? And he said, no, at this point, it's important for us to have the best guys out. They give us the best chance to win. And he's like, if you try to, sit some of these guys, can give them an uneasy feeling. So I think that's can be kind of foretelling as far as, Breece Hall's workload. So I like the fact that when you get bad weather and I'm pivoting away from the passing game, it would make a whole lot of sense to focus on the run game.
Yeah, so Breece, again, like, he may not get 2 touchdowns today, but again, like, just from a matchup standpoint, I think the run game is probably where we want to go. And when you go on the Buffalo side, like, to get 2 touchdowns for somebody like James Cook or Josh Allen, you're looking at a premium around maybe 4-1, like, if at best, so I think the Buffalo side is pretty steamed, definitely from a running standpoint. So, all right, so now let's move on to the 180 challenge. This is the anytime touchdown parlay. We try to do 2-leg, 3-leg, try to get it at least to 18-1. The first guy that I want to put on this parlay, B-Matt, is somebody that I bet for 2 touchdowns last week. We only got 1, but we were still able to walk away with profit because we did bet just the anytime touchdown as well. But I think, again, just a solid matchup for Jordan Addison against that Packers defense. He scored 2 touchdowns on them earlier in the year. Historically, he's only played them 3 times in his career, and he's been pretty good in almost all of them except one game, right? So Jordan Addison, you're just seeing, like, his stock continue to rise. It probably is kind of like the T. Higgins in that offense, you know what I mean? And
exactly
I mean, we watched T. Higgins score 2 touchdowns yesterday too. So
3
touchdowns. Yeah, I forgot. Thank you for that correction. So Jordan Addison is who I want to put as the first leg. Who do you want to put as the second leg?
Yeah, look, Jalen McMillan, all he's done over the last 4 weeks is score touchdowns. 5 touchdowns in his last 4 games. I said this last week, they were waiting for somebody to step up opposite Mike Evans. And now that Kate Otten's out, they really needed somebody to step up. And Jalen McMillan's been awesome.
I like that.
Yeah, there you go. It might be his new nickname. But look, his separation score, not just the touchdowns. Like, he's winning the man-to-man matchups, his individual matchups. So yeah, I think Jalen McMillan could be a nice addition here.
All right, so Addison and McMillan. The third leg, though, I've already bet him for an anytime touchdown, this third guy, but I think you and I both have strong feelings about how he's going to perform this week. And that's Josh Downs in that Colts offense. As soon as Joe Flacco was announced as the starter, I was like, Josh Downs, or Alec Pierce, who I like too from a deep ball standpoint. But Josh Downs right now, he's, his odds are dropping, obviously, as soon as the Flacco news came out. But when you put these 3 together, B-Matt, at DraftKings, when I put them in, we're getting 22-1, which I think is a pretty solid look for 3 solid wide receivers. Jordan Addison, Jalen McMillan, and Josh Downs at 22-1. B-Matt, you're one of the parlay kings that I always think of. What do you think of this parlay and just the odds and the success that maybe we could have with this one?
Yeah, I love this one, man. And I will say this, like, I also have a thing where, like, if I like a couple different players and they all happen to have the same first letter, first name, they're going together.
J's.
So we got Jordan, Jalen, and Josh, the J leg. So absolutely in on the J parlay. Yeah,
the J leg. I like that one. All right, cool. So that is the 180 challenge for this week. Jordan Addison, Jalen McMillan, and Josh Downs comes out to 22-1 at DraftKings. So, B-Matt, that's all for today. We've got I've got 4 picks. You've got 4 picks. We've got some touchdown parlays on deck. We've got that collab with Nick Westbrook Akinye. So I want to remind everybody the touchdown show. We're going to be back here next Sunday, wrapping up the season for NFL Week 18. It's all part of the Action Network Power Hour. Convince Me kicks us off at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you can find it on the Action Network YouTube page. Make sure to like and subscribe. And if you missed the show, you want to get our picks, just download the Action app. All of our touchdown bets are tracked there. You can get them as soon as you bet them with pick notifications. So I want to thank you for joining us for the touchdown show for Week 17. Bon chance.